Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Zwift Myths, coming live from the Ecuadorian embassy here in Watopia. It appears that last week's video didn't really go as well as expected. I mean, we did find a massive flaw in the system, and we did make them address it within 2 days. So, I mean, it probably reduced the amount of cheating that could potentially have happened during every single national championships across the world at the weekend. But it's, you know, I fully understand why they're trying to extradite me, and they're calling me the new Snowden. So there's that. So this weekend just gone saw the qualifying round for the British National Championship on Zwift, as well as all those other national championships throughout the world. And one rider in particular I want to focus on, and that's Cameron Jeffers, our little rider. He failed to qualify. And it got me thinking, if he had a power-up, would he have qualified? It seems that even in the KSL, that the power-up of choice is the Aero, and riders will spend ages trying to get one. He's not going to get one. He's got it! He's got it! He's got the Aero! Game on! This is it, game over for everybody else now.
Just as well.
Come on, boy. Come on, Wally, come on! Come on, Marty, you got this! All in, Marty, all in! Come on!
But what is the advantage of having that Aero? Is it just a placebo effect, or is there a distinct difference between the Aero and that draft, that featherweight, or having absolutely nothing? Let's find out. We're using the forward sprint on the standard Watopia road. It's just outside the Italian village, 300 meters. We're starting with the featherweight. What you're going to notice straight away from that featherweight is that we have 100 meters to go. It is kaput, it is used up. It's a 15-second power up. Ideal for the hills, not so much here. 20.95 for that sprint over 300 meters. We've got 3 more examples of the feather here that we're going to use. We're sticking to 868 watts. We're sticking to 100 RPM throughout the whole test. So we're just using 3 more examples just to get an idea exactly what those times are, just in case there is any differentials in them. Coming up on the line again, 21.06. Second option is 0, nada, nothing. No power up whatsoever. So bear in mind the featherweight was 21.06, 868 watts again. Finishing time of 21.32. 2/10 of a second slower, almost 3/10. So again, just for clarity, just so we've got it, 3 more examples of having absolutely nothing when it comes to sprinting. Sprinting on pure power and energy. 21.34, 21.33, exactly, with give or take, it's exactly the same. Now this is the most interesting one, the Aero. The Aero is double the amount of time that the featherweight is. So it's 30 seconds, and in effect, it's just making you smaller. It's just creating a smaller CDA, or reducing that CDA. Now, we all know about that. 20.13, so that's... I'll have to check my numbers again, but that's almost a second, right? On that featherweight. Over a second when it comes to absolutely nothing. So again, 3 more examples of that Aero. In effect, just taking maybe 20-30 centimeters off your overall height. .13 once again. And then finally we're going to test that draft. I have no idea why we're testing this draft. Maybe it's to fill this video out just a little bit longer, but have a guess of what's going to happen. It doesn't take a genius to work out that there is going to be absolutely no difference in using that draft power up. However, if you're in a race, if there is people in front of you, there is a good chance that you could draft them all the way to the line, 21.34. that you could draft them all the way to the line and actually gain more of an effect from that draft than that aero. But we can't set that experiment up to be exact every single time, so we're going to have to go with 0 people to draft, because if you draft a couple of people but then you're out in the open, that draft becomes redundant. There's absolutely no point using it. So just for this, 21.34 and an anomaly there, 21.27. So let's have a look at the 3 power-ups all together. And we'll dissect those times a little bit further, because I can see them on the screen and read it. One in the middle obviously is the Aero, and that's going to finish first, 20.13. Left hand side 21.06 for that feather, 21.27 for draft or having absolutely nothing. So almost 1.2 seconds for that Aero over that draft or having nothing. So in a sprint that's huge. Climbing up a hill, not so much, but in a sprint, when it comes down to the finish and we see more and more races covered by less than half a second, an Aero could be the difference between winning and losing, which is why the KSL boys spend a lot of time getting them. Now here we have a real life situation. This is heading onto the red road, under the arch, onto the mall, and this is starting with the Aero power up. We want to take that Aero power up all the way from the start of this red road all the way to that finish line to see how much of an increase in time, in speed you actually get. So same wattage, same RPM all the way throughout this. So obviously with this, it's a lot longer road. It's almost maybe 400 meters, maybe 500 meters. You'll see the 300 meters to go just there. Oh, sorry, my apologies. That was 200 meters to go. I missed the 300. So yeah, 400 meters. And we're going to finish that red road in 28.02 seconds. Okay. Next power up is the feather, and it'll be interesting to actually see if that feather has any difference, or that power up has any difference when it starts to rain, because in effect that feather's making you lighter, but that rain is going to make you heavier. So is it that realistic? Who knows? Let's have a look. 200 meters to go. Feather's going to cross the line in a time of 29.05. And then draft again. We're using the draft just as a baseline because there's no one to draft. So we'll get an idea of what you'd normally do with the 0 power up here. So with 0 power up, we're at 29.2 seconds. Let's have a look at all these power ups together over the course of the red road. So we've got draft on the left, feather in the middle, and Aero on the right hand side. So because the road's a bit longer, because we're allowing that whole Aero to be used up on this drag, what we'll see is probably a bigger advantage in terms of seconds. First over the line, Aero 28.02. Second is feather 29.11. 1.1 seconds in front of the feather, and then 1.2 seconds in front of the draft, 29.22. Now let's take this and show this in a real world situation. Let's go back to the UK Nationals and our rider Cam Jeffers. He's heading up the Fordkm. He has an Aero. A lot of people are pinging off those feathers, but he's got an Aero. We're going to follow him up this climb all the way. I just want him to relive this. So as well, keep an eye on the map in the top right hand corner. You can see there Cam's at the front third of that big long line. That long line is not splitting whatsoever. It's not splitting. There's tiny little gaps, but them gaps are closable. So there's absolutely no need to do anything apart from just keep grinding this gear out, Keep pushing, keep working, staying focused on those riders in front. The last thing you want to do right now is hit. Oh my God, he's done it. He's hit the aero. He's hit the aero. Next to him, you've got Moses, who hasn't popped any power up there. You've got a couple of people using drafts, but there's still some stronger riders behind him who will be there at the finish. So it looks like it could be a mistake that's gonna haunt Cam towards the end of that race. So what I want to do now is have a look at exactly the distances Cam covered when he pressed that aero compared to had he not pressed anything at all or had a featherweight there instead. So let's take the 4 examples here. Top left, featherweight. Top right, aero. Bottom left, draft. We know that that's not gonna make any difference whatsoever. And then bottom right, we've got 0 power up, or if he'd have just carried on grinding and working like a professional cyclist should do. You know, who am I to judge, eh? Who am I to judge? But we're gonna hit those power ups roughly at the same point that he did there. So about now, there we go. Those power ups have been hit. He's got just over 300 meters to go up this climb. What we're saying, we're roughly saying that an aero is worth a second over probably like a 300, 400 meters. Featherweight would have finished by now, so he wouldn't be getting any more benefit out of that, but it would have probably moved him up just a little bit. And what I want to do is just pause the video when we get to the finish line with that aero. So aero's done now, and as you can see, had that line been there, had the group of riders still been there, he would have still been sat in there, maybe 10 riders back instead of being 10 riders in front. And there you go, we've just blanked out the other 2 on the left hand side because it's all about that aero and not having an aero. And with all due respect, Cam, you shouldn't have hit that aero this time. But that's cool, that's racing. We learn, we adapt, we get better. So as you can see, coming into the finish with 600 meters to go, people are already popping their aeros. So that's how early you can use an aero when it comes down to this sprint here. All those riders that were with him at the top of that climb are still here now, and they're just popping those aeros like there's no tomorrow. And unfortunately, Cam hasn't got anything to use right now, so he's just sprinting on pure power. And you can see riders coming from behind him and overtaking him. And as we get to the finish line, well, I think we all know the result. Unfortunately, Cam finished 12th and 2 places out of the qualifying zone. Alright, Cam, no need to swear. That's terrible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at that sprint as if no one was there. We've got draft, featherweight, bottom left is aero, bottom right is absolutely nothing. And again, we're going to see how far Cam would have finished up the road and would he have qualified had he had that aero all the way to that line. In hindsight, it's easy to say that he definitely would have if he'd have just held on to it, but would he have got dropped elsewhere had he not got a featherweight after that aero, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of variables, but let's take it at face value and let's try and make a good video out of it, eh? Yeah? Good. So featherweight is finished now. Draft boost would have been really beneficial in that situation because of the amount of riders that were there, and we're going to stop it again as we cross the line with that aero. And you can see the difference. You don't need a vernier or a caliper to work out the distance there. That's meters, and we'll take a closer look at those 2 bottom screens. That's 10, 20 meters maybe. That's a huge distance, and if we overlay Cam's finishing back over the top, that's where he is without the aero. And if you look through all those riders past all those aeros, you can see that he probably would have, I hate to say he would have won it, but none of the riders have actually crossed the line yet, whereas with Cam with that aero, he would have crossed the line by now. So without a shadow of a doubt, he would have qualified had he had that aero.
Oh, 12.
Fiddlesticks! Fiddlesticks! And now he's never going to live it down, is he? But I think it's safe to say the aero on the flat for a sprint, if you're racing, is the most important power up you can get on Zwift. End of. Cameron Jeffers. So there you have it. I think it is it's pretty self-explanatory. If you ever use an Aero power-up up a hill, you're an idiot. All right? Save it. Save it! Because the only place that Aero becomes an advantage is in the sprint. It's imperative. You've got to work your butt off up those hills, knowing that when you get to that sprint, it's going to be just that little bit easier. Because if you come up against a rider who's got an Aero power, even if they're weaker than you, the chances are they're going to beat you. Aero is king. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. We're going live tomorrow for some KISS Community League. Are you sure there's no way we can get around that whole height doping thing anymore? Because I'm going to struggle to keep up with that lot. We've found a new cheat.